Mentioned, basically what we'll go over is some different aspects of international development, focusing on violence against women in Liberia specifically, which is where I have been working and living for the last year. In 1980, you had a military junta or group that came and overthrew what was then the electorally elected government, or democratically elected government. And they imposed a relatively brutal regime on the people of Liberia, and then eventually you had a rebel, a warlord, named Charles Taylor, some of whom you may also know, who is currently in The Hague, being tried for war crimes not committed in Liberia, but in Sierra Leone. He came in from the north, and he, through these 4 years, engaged in a campaign and eventually overthrew this military dictatorship. He then became president. After becoming president, he had his own relatively oppressive regime that was installed. And then at the end of that regime, there was another 4 years of conflict when two other groups came in and deposed him. As I mentioned, there was a comprehensive peace agreement signed in 2003. Since that agreement, there's been a peacekeeping force in Liberia, and the country has taken various steps towards post-conflict transformation and recovery. During the conflict, I mean, the conflict was a particularly brutal one. If anybody knows anything about it, it's usually characterized by child soldiers, cannibalism, and an estimated 250,000 people that were killed. There was hundreds of thousands of people displaced, by some estimates about 1 million. I mean, if you talk to people in Liberia, you know, people that work as security guards or shopkeepers or drivers or whatever, just people that you interact with on a day-to-day basis, pretty much everyone has got some sort of harrowing tale from the conflict period. Either they lost somebody, they were injured, they were tortured, they had to flee with their family. So, to the good cause that we're all sort of supporting here. It's a local school in a place called Point 4 Community, and the way that I got to know Point 4 Community was through a focus group discussion that I did as part of a research project. So basically we went in and we talked to different community members in a group about different aspects of their community, all relating to violence. So what sort of violence do you see? Why do you see it? You know, how has it changed? Is it getting worse, et cetera, et cetera? All with the point of hopefully informing politicians, NGO workers, with insights into how can we prevent and reduce violence. And gender-based violence or sexual violence or violence against, also Douala is actually one of the most dangerous, along with West Point. So, you know, this is a situation where you don't really have a lot of opportunity for education, but you're surrounded on a constant basis by drugs, violence, prostitution, things like this. So, you know, providing the kids with a safe space to go and study the very, very basics. I think apart from any sort of educational value, it's just a space where kids can be kids and you know, spend a few hours of their day away from everything else that's in their community. Going back to the conflict, which I didn't really explain all that well, basically the conflict saw a situation where, I mean, obviously people operated with impunity, both rebels and the army, you know, the government portion of the fighting forces. Rape was used as a weapon of war on all sides. So these are things that are very, very difficult to estimate, but there was some research done by the World Health Organization, or for the World Health Organization in different counties. And so Monrovia, Liberia is made up of counties, sort of like provinces, and they surveyed different counties to see how widespread rape was. And depending on the county, anywhere between 61% and 78% of women were victims of rape. And so, I mean, what this comes down to is over 600,000 women out of the total population at some point in their lives, well, between 15 and 49, experiencing some form of sexual violence. And as I say, these are statistics that are drastically, most likely underreported. In certain situations, in most situations, the survivor is not going to come forward because they don't think that anything's going to be done. Oftentimes it's somebody that they know either from their community or from their family even that's done it. And so there's this inherent desire, I guess, to protect and maintain social and family bonds. So there's a lot of pressure put on the survivor from the community to not actually come forward to any sort of authority or anything like that. So there are steps being taken, but you know, I think oftentimes as as international, do we want to, and the donor community, so our governments, for example, that donate money to these causes want to see results right away. This isn't the kind of thing that can be fixed quickly, but it does get fixed slowly, I guess, through concerted efforts and through, steps such as this and slow progress. And so it's not completely forlorn, the situation, but we do have to be reasonable in our expectations.
Yeah. How much UN and WHO involvement is there currently?
Well, Liberia had one of the biggest missions, if not the biggest mission in the history of the UN, something like 15,000 peacekeepers. That's not just